to the chairs anywhere? Yes, there's a chair over here. Peggy, there's speaker said she's coming, so I'll save one seat for her. Hafidades and Mananasidu, many of God's blessings to all of you here this morning. The committee on housing will call this roundtable discussion to order. It's at about 9:06 in the morning. On behalf of the Legislative Housing Committee, I'd like to extend a thank you for sharing your time with us. I want to say that so many of you hardworking professionals that help drive this community every day, so making time yet for another meeting on a Friday morning this week before April 15, well, I guess I'm sure that this is a statement that speaks for itself. The Housing Committee is grateful for your participation in this process, and we look forward to your input today. I hope we can all spread the word for those that were unable to attend this morning's roundtable that we still want to hear your ideas and concerns. The committee will be happy to accept your written testimony. So even after today's roundtable discussion, if there's anybody out there in the listening audience or anybody who's present here today, please don't hesitate to spread the word. And if anyone else would like to comment, we'd be more than welcome to accept any kind of written testimony. And they could send their testimony on their ideas or concerns to senator@chinamuñabarnes.com or our facsimile, which still works for some, 472-3400. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to say that before us today are two measures that was drafted by Guam Housing Corporation Management and Legal Counsel. The first will ask us to adopt rules and regulations for the Guam Housing Trust Fund. The second would fund the trust through an increase in the real property conveyance tax. Let me be clear. This committee will move expeditiously to introduce legislation that adopts the rules and regulations for the Guam Housing Trust Fund as soon as they are transmitted to us by the Attorney General. It is in the trust fund. Rules and regulations are with the Attorney General's office right now. We are still patiently waiting for them. However, any proposal that will increase taxes must be a subject of rigorous economic analysis, broad stakeholder involvement, and community discussion. And while my personal view on this matter are clear, the goals the Guam Housing Corporation has set out are certainly commendable, and we are here so that they can make their case today. It is a bold move that will no doubt help the Guam Housing Corporation continue helping the island's struggling families find safe, affordable homes. I'd like to note that the Guam Housing Corporation's leadership has indicated that their proposal is necessary to continue for the continuation of the first-time homeowners assistance program, a popular initiative with nearly 300 success stories that highlight the achievement of Guam's hardworking families. 300 families whose financial struggles once made owning a home nearly impossible for them. Ladies and gentlemen, I have seen the success of Guam Housing Corporation's first-time homeowners assistance program with my own eyes. I have been proud to be a supporter of that initiative from the beginning. I want to say it's changed lives, and I'm sure that we can all agree that we are committed to its long-term sustainability. I also want to note for history that Speaker Ben Pangilinan, who was the initial author of this initiative, it was Speaker Juan Pat who truly carried out the funding source that we worked on when we did the first-time homeowners resource to getting funding for that program moving forward, and she's here with me this morning. Thank you for joining me, and I'd be remiss if I didn't note the presence of the minority leader, Senator Tony Atta, who's very close to a lot of housing initiatives that are out there, and I want to thank him for joining me here this morning. I do want to commend the Guam Housing Corporation's leadership for taking the initiative to find ways to secure this as a program strong enough to serve tomorrow's first-time homeowners. I, along with many others in our community, are proud supporters of Guam Housing Corporation and its core mission to help Guam's families. This is why I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that the stakeholders present in this room can achieve a steady source of funding for this value endeavor without increasing taxes at this time, and whether through the use of, and I've noted it for the record in the past through the media and through a lot of our constituent stakeholders out there, through the use of dormant funds that we've used in the past, an annual budgetary set-aside that we can look at, or an increase in revenue generation at the Guam Housing Corporation, such as with rentals. These are several examples that we can look at before raising taxes. I want to say that alternatives do exist, and we must find them together. Before I open the floor for public comment, I'd like to request that the Guam Housing Corporation team provide today's attendees with a brief overview of your proposed legislation. You are the experts, and we hope you can provide us with information that will help us better understand the Guam Housing Corporation's current financial position. I am certain that any financial reports, revenue projections, fiscal notes, or economic impact studies you can provide us will offer valuable insight that could lead us toward better solutions for the Guam Housing Corporation and the Housing Trust Fund. And I want to say that I hope that today's roundtable discussion will be productive and very positive. And I ask that if any commitments are made today, that it would be to ensure that we've exhausted all of our options, alternatives, and solutions before we resort to increasing taxes and increasing the cost of doing business or investing in Guam. I do, ladies and gentlemen, want to note for the record, and I want to thank him for coming, our former colleague who's now working as the liaison for the legislature to the administration, former Senator Chris Duenas. Thank you for joining us this morning. And if I may, I do know that Guam Housing Corporation has worked really hard on trying to move efforts forward. So at this time, I will afford them the opportunity to do the floor. Then you can say something, and then I will have the public, if that's all right with you. Speaker, before any opening remarks for you, Senator? Okay. Uncle Martin, Mr. Martin Benavente, thank you very much for being here. Ms. Guerrero? I guess I do apologize if I can just have state for the record, everybody around the table, just state their name and where they're from for the record, so that our committee staff has a listing of all the attendees here. We can start from you, Miss Mary.
All right, thank you. Mary Guerrero, Loan Administrator for Guam Housing Corporation.
Martin Benavente, President, Guam Housing Corporation.
Clyde Beaver, Compliance, Guam Housing Corporation.
Chris Duenas, Legislative Liaison, Governor's Office.
Joanne Del Carmen from Del Carmen Investments.
John Arroyo, General Manager, Title Guarantee.
Ed Ching, Counsel for Cortec.
Kim Anderson Young, Security Title. Deanna Palmer, Guam Association of Realtors, President, 2016.
Chris Felix, Guam Association of Realtors.
Do you know there are other attendees listening to this presentation? I would like to acknowledge the presence of former Senator Alvarez here. Thank you very much for joining us. Anyone else would like to state their name for the record?
Ron Young from Security Title.
And Teresa Williams from Security.
Henry Yagas from Guam Association of Realtors.
Susie Santos? Susie May Santos. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Mike Borhood, Director of
Mike, would you like a seat at the table? Okay. From Gura. Thank you, Kat. Okay.
Well, at this point, I would first like to thank everybody for showing up to this roundtable discussion. The Housing Trust Fund, for just the history of what's there already, was created in 2012. At that time, we did not fund it. We just had the bill passed and signed, and it exists now. We were directed to draft the rules and regulations, which we did, and we've had our public hearing, and we've sent it off to the governor's office. We sent it off to the AG's office. So that's on a separate thing, but it actually ties in to the Housing Trust Fund. We start out with just wanting to mention all these different problems that in the housing category that in Guam that's already way ahead of us. The homelessness is way ahead of us. We're chasing after it to catch up with solutions on how to solve these problems. People who lose their homes through fires, through flooding. We face these people every day trying to find ways to house them temporarily. We also have people who are right at the brink of being able to buy their own homes. And we went after the things like the systems development charge to have that removed, because it was really affecting a lot of the people that are building homes in that level, the affordable level. And we're going into ways of building structures that are less expensive than what they are today, even down as low as a $30,000, $35,000, 1,000 square foot dome, which replaces a lot of what's out there. Hopefully will replace a lot of what's out there. Then we, of course, drafted the funding bill, which part of the history, I'll leave that to Clyde to talk about. And then our senator, former Senator Chris here is with us, so he'll take the lead on a lot of these. I just wanted to mention that why we're here is because of all the problems that many of them I haven't even listed yet. We've tried from the beginning with the help of the legislature. We managed to solve the big problem of what used to be Lada Estate. And all of you know that that was a very successful move, but it was successful because we had the cooperation of the legislature and a lot of other people. Today it houses seniors that are very happy being able to move into those units. We've also took back a lot of these old-time teacher staff housing that were just laying around for 20, 30 years doing nothing. It was just people were using it for trash. They were using it for drugs, and it was just sitting there. And these are government assets that have been sitting for years. So even that part, we still have government assets that are sitting around needing repairs so that we can make them make them usable again. So we talk about what we need funds for. Somehow everybody thinks that we're here just trying to create a fund. We're not trying to create a fund. We're trying to solve some problems that are in the community. A lot of you know and see the homeless situation that's running around in the capital city of Agana today, Hagatna. That's an everyday thing. We have people that are running around on the beaches of Guam, affecting the tourism with no homes, and they're just there every day, and they're happy with that. We need to find ways to take them out of the streets and put them into temporary housing to keep these people being human, because you leave them out there too long, and then they turn into a lot of these people that are producing crime in our island. So we've got people that can't help themselves. We have people that just need that little push. We have homes that are people that actually are very ready to own their own homes, but we need to have these funds more permanent so that we can continue to loan people out. We have 8,000 loan people money. We have 8,000 people that are standing in line in the Chamorro Land Trust list. Properties are there, but there's nothing else. So that dream is going to stay a dream for a very long time until we start helping them. We've got abandoned houses in Sagandilasan that still need to be renovated. We need to take that back, take that community back. We have, of course, managed with the help of GURA to pull back 10 units out of the I think 90 something that's there, and it's now back in government hands. Of course, the legislature helped there too by transferring these properties back to the government agencies. We've got a lot of work to do. Some of them we know how to handle already. We've put programs to a test. We've done work and not get paid administrative fees. We haven't collected administrative fees because we first want to see that we can handle these problems. There's a way of solving some of these problems. So now we're coming back with 5 years experience of doing these things and saying, well, more than 5, but with me it's 5 years experience of solving these problems. We can do it, but we need these funds to be there to help us, because the homelessness is not getting any better. People are hiding it. I've also, with the governor's permission, been discussing other ways to solve the immigrant problems, especially with the Chuukese government. So in my last trip, I went and had a talk with the Chuuk Attorney General, the governor of Chuuk, and we were trying to find ways to bring their support into trying to solve the immigration problem. So, I wanted to put this picture out first, because we're not just trying to collect money here, we're trying to solve problems. And some of the things we're doing are already mandated by the legislature. And we continue to try and struggle with what we got. We've got just enough today to operate, have employees paid and all that. We don't have that much money left over to, because I guess our product is so popular that everybody, wants a little bit of it. The 400 families that we've helped in the down payment assistance program, we wish we had some more, because Mary still has them standing in line, applying and waiting for the funds to be reestablished again. So I thank all of you for participating, being here to participate today, and I turn it over to, and I'll ask Mary to say one more thing here.
Okay, with the trust fund program, there is one program that is authorized and funded under the trust fund. The funding was strictly for the first-time homeowner assistance program, and that was a total of 2.1 from the escheated funds and 500 from Guam Housing's operating fund. We were mandated on the escheated funds that these funds be committed within 1 year and disbursed after within 18 months. We beat those deadlines. As a matter of fact, to date, we have, and we continue, we are not stopping the program. We continue to accept applications so that the law allows for reimbursement because they have paid. But it's a program that is very much needed. We have no funds. All the funds are committed. We continue to receive. We continue to receive an average of about maybe 7 at a minimum to 10 a week. They're not complete because they're waiting for a document to complete the processing. But I do have 22 that are close to being approved. Unfortunately, we cannot certify that for the funds, because funds are not available. So we do have 6 that have completed, and an additional 22 that are in the pipeline, ready and awaiting for certification of funds. And this amounts to at least, it's close to about $80,000 to $90,000. I mean, we say it's not much, but as we receive and as we approve, it's going to accumulate. And funds are not sitting there. If there is an extension, it's because they're waiting for the house to be completed, and that's permissible. We're looking for funding for that, especially for that, because that is already an authorized activity under the trust fund. So that, I know I have engaged in a dialogue with the realtors, even before the funds were depleted. Even before we committed the last of the 100,000, I've asked the realtors, help me please find in the interim how we can address, because really this program, it's a program that you can actually say it seals the deal for a closing. I know I hear a lot from the realtors. They're wanting to close. They can't because they are in need. Those funds are required for them to seal the deal and close and make that closing happen.
Please speak into the mic, Ms. Deanna.
So the money that you're waiting for is for the up to 10,000 towards closing costs?
Yes.
Not the 40,000, the other first-time buyer loan?
Oh, that's the CAHAT. No, that one we have. I'm talking strictly about the first-time homeowner assistance program, which is the grant. And that is the one that is most popular. Depending on the programs that the banks use, they're seeing that they can use these grants to complement and meet some of their requirements for their down payment and their closing costs. All of these activities are being handled by the title companies. Guam Housing, again, I don't want that misconception that Guam Housing is the only financial institution that is realizing this, because it's not. There are banks and credit unions that are participating. And just on the waiting list of the 22 I have right here, out of the 22, only one is Guam Housing's that is waiting for funding. Everything else is other banks that are participating. So it's out for the community, and it's a program that is very favorable because it's a program that is not necessarily income driven. It's cost. It's cost that allows an applicant to be eligible and to receive such a grant. So I just want to share that with you, because that's in a program that's in existence, is in dire need of funding, and that we need to address, because we all know that once they execute a purchase agreement, time is ticking. They need those funds to make the closing happen. So I just want to share that with you, because that is a program that is currently authorized under the trust fund. Thank you.
Mr. Beaver?
In here, the bill, in this bill before you, we have identified some funding sources. These funding sources that we identified were something that has been in practice in other housing trust fund organizations across the country. And housing trust funds, of course, the purpose is to solve the problems that Martin Benavente was talking about: affordable housing, homeless problems, down payment problems. But anyway, this funding source, there's two of them in this bill right here. We started out with about 6. Now we've extracted 5 of them or 4 of them at the request of the different players here. We've changed a lot of the numbers because of the different players here. I know we was looking to put a transfer fee on all real estate transactions as occurs in other districts. Well, we've changed that. We put the floor at $1 million, so any sale above $1 million, this would be affected. We was asking for 1.75% initially. We've dropped that down to 1.15%. And again, at the request of the folks here. We have removed the interest on security deposits at the request of folks here, because they didn't want to have to deal with that one. So we took that one out. The escheated funds was in there. We took that one out at the request of people here. So we've taken out all these different avenues. We've only got one left. There's 2 of them, but one of them is very minor. But the one that is in there, it is, again, a source that is used nationwide. It is a source that varies depending on the real estate markets, state to state, city to city, county to county. I know that my experience in Seattle was when I was there, it was 1.78%. Now it's 203. In New York City, it's 2.65. But then again, they all have different add-ons in different cities, so depending on what it is. So we was looking at 1.75 here at start with. Now we're at 1.15, and we're looking at sales over $1 million. The big thing is we're looking to stimulate the housing industry for those who just can't quite get there. And Mr. Benavienti did an excellent job explaining that. And this program here would do that. We see so many people working at retail jobs that just can't afford the $250,000 for a house. No matter how many people are working in the household cannot make enough money to do that. So at any rate, Martin did a better job explaining that than I am. What we're looking at here is the bill. So we want to really look at that, at least 1.15. That would not meet our needs. That would barely fund the first-time homeowner program from that money right there. And I know right now it's about $1.2 million a year that we've been using. This would bring in about 2.6 if we went on this rate here, or roughly. And of course that depends on the sales. Sales go up, that helps. If sales go down, that hurts. But still, it would be a market. But we also need to fund some land trust applicants because the banks won't do that. Only we can do that. They can't get because of restrictions on the property. So we fund land trust applicants. So there are several things that we do, and because other people cannot do it, and we just don't have the resources to do it. We budget ourselves. We budget tight. We lay people off because we have people. We've reduced our staffing because we can't afford people. We've reduced our expenses, and of course we are a lender of last resort, so we do have to work on our clientele. They're difficult people to start with. So, this funding source here is not something we dreamed up. It is something it's in practice, and I pulled most of my information out of Washington State because that's where I was most familiar with. But Hawaii has it, Puerto Rico has it, and every state across the union has it. So we just need to do that here. We just need to get that going here.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr.
guys.
Weaver. Before I have Senator Duenas speak, I keep looking at Mr. Bora, and I just wanted to ask you a question regarding the fee assessment if this were to pass. Mr. Bora, can you come to the table a minute, please? I just want to confirm, because if I'm not mistaken now, the recordation fees, the conveyance for the real property, does a certain percent of those fees go to the Department of Land Management?
Currently, the
budget?
document fee that we collect goes all to the Department of Land Management.
And what percentage is that?
0.25%.
0.25%. So, if this were to take place right now, would that be impeding, or would that be impeding into the funds?
Well, the
tapping into-
understanding is that for the amount that's going to be collected differently would be those sales greater than $1 million, and that a portion of that will still go to the Department of Land Management because it's still dependent upon those fees for the operational costs.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bora. Senator Duenas?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Speaker, and Minority Leader Senator Tony Ada. I think that these two proposals before us, one which we can discard after having talks with the real estate professionals and other members of our community. As Clyde mentioned, we are now dealing with a proposed compromise amounts in terms of the two programs that are proposed. I want to say I think we should have had the big draft across the page instead of the little draft on the top, because I just want to let everybody know that, as Clyde said and as the President said, this proposal is actually about 3 years old. This has been shopped around by Martin to just about former senators and probably just about all senators that currently are in the 33rd Guam legislature. So this is not a new proposal, and the governor's office, through myself, working with the president, reached out and discussed this proposal with the real estate professionals. We know, and I had another meeting earlier this week with members from the real estate market and professionals, And we believe that there's going to be some further discussion on compromise. But I just want to make it clear from the governor's office and from the position of the administration. As Mary put out, these are proven programs. As Clyde put out, these are programs that take place in other jurisdictions. And we can show you numbers today, and I've asked the real estate professionals to bring some numbers as well. We can show you numbers today that the group of folks involved in this proposal is probably between 5 to 9% of all real estate transactions that take place or that have taken place in our research over the last 3 years. So we're not hitting the common guy. We're not making it harder on the common guy. We are proposing a program, as I said, to fund in the top 5 to 9% of transactions. And we have the graph here at least from September 14 to August 2015. So in closing, to get started on this discussion, once again, we want to be clear that the proposal here is to subsidize programs that are proven through Guam Housing to help the most needy. And we're open to a discussion. We're not in the business, or we won't be in the business, of introducing a bill or forcing anything down anybody's throat. We will have dialogue and a discussion, and we will see where it goes from there. The last two things I want to mention, other than possible proposals to, and I've discussed this with a couple of real estate professionals, and that is, if this 1.1% in the numbers that we work with is unacceptable, perhaps what we move to as a further compromise is a floating percentage that subsidizes the programs that they have that are proven and known. And if that comes down to, that proposal in terms of having that percentage tacked on to what the current recordation rate is to fund proven programs with positive benefit to our community, then we can work with that. The other thing we want to mention from the perspective of the governor's office, it was very, very clear earlier this year when we fought really hard to get the rules and regulations, just like the rules and regulations now for Guam Housing, for the Chamorro Land Trust to go forward. That was a battle. And we looked at that, and we now still look at that as one of the fundamental programs to assist with our most needy in our community. And yet now what we face is consistent protests and representations when commercial properties are being put out by the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, land management, and the combination thereof, not to use commercial properties, not to generate revenue from commercial properties, in order to be able to help our most needy people. So I put before this panel and this body that we are coming forward with compassion. We're coming forward with a program that is designed to help our people. There are a lot of great transactions that are going out there right now. You guys are doing a bang-up job. Real estate is going well. We can see. But there also are people that are being left behind. And that's what we're putting on the table here. To close on the numbers, when you good folks of the legislature use these cheated funds, and the Housing Trust Fund itself put its money together and generated what is now depleted, $3 million. Here is the undeniable economic activity that happened, including in the real estate markets, many of you that are here. The gross real estate sales, because of this $3 million, was $76 million. To the real estate industry itself, over $5 million was generated in economic activity. Down the list, escrows, the list goes on. We'll give you a copy of this to validate. The total generated economic opportunity from this $3 million was $106 million in our community of economic activity. So all we're saying is, if this proposal is unpalatable in any way, then we'll pray on the legislature to find the money and to appropriate the money from the general fund or whatever other fund will be available if we cannot negotiate fees and work together with this piece of legislation. Because this program is proven, members of this body were authors and fathers and mothers of this program. And so we're coming to you to discuss this because it's a real program. It needs to be funded. And this, as I said, as a draft proposal, is set before you, and let the games begin. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ms. Stoker, we'll just go ahead and work from. Yes, thank you. And if you can make copies for everybody on the table. Ms. Okay, John?
Just a couple questions. Chris, you mentioned, what was it, 5 to 9%? What was that number? Was that 5%, 5 to 9% of transactions?
Mr. Arroyo, you want to go ahead and address the question to me?
Can
and
you
then
make-
I'll
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just for formality's
This is
sake.
a snapshot that
Yeah.
that we did in terms of the
Oh, yeah. A number of 5 to 9% was mentioned, and I just wanted some clarification of what that number represented.
Okay. Senator,
We're having,
Please.
we'll see that if that bears out, other than we did a 3-year analysis from, Clyde, that was what, 12 to 12 to 15?
Yeah, it was actually 9 to 12.
Yeah, 9 to 12, excuse me. That 3-year analysis was all of the transactions in real estate annually. So we broke it down, and we had, in the proposed bill in the beginning, the 500,000. And then we adjusted that to $1 million. Transactions above $1 million in that 3-year window. And now we have this to compare with the latest data, 14 to 15, August to September. Between 5 to 9% in any given year was the transactions above $1 million. So if you're my good colleague, Senator Tony Atta, if you're the guy who went out there and built himself a house or bought property or decided to invest, he spent $900,000. That's not the category we're looking at. We're looking at everybody who did a transaction or made an investment of building a home or buying property above $1 million. That's why we're saying.
but that's the compromise now because before the previous legislation was at
That's correct.
500,000.
That's correct.
And that was the major
that's
concern.
why we talked to
Yeah.
people. We sat down, we had this conversation. We did not, this is not an introduction. Not even for committee of rules. This is a draft piece of paper right now. So when we went back and we spoke to folks, we said, nowadays we realize that on Guam, the folks that are building houses and the cost of building houses and construction and everything else, $250, $300, that's a regular home now. $500 is a decent home. If you're doing all right, if you're the $600, $700, $800, $900, you're still upper middle class, right? Getting better. But we felt that $1 million cutoff wasn't hitting the common guy. Wasn't hitting that guy, that middle class guy that made it and said, I got enough money to either buy $1 million worth of real estate or less than $1 million of real estate, a couple of acres. I'm going to be like my friends. I'm going to build a couple of apartments, or I'm going to build, condos, whatever else. I'm going to invest that $1 million. At least for that year, that person's not going to be affected. But these guys that are coming here, and a lot of the recordations that are happening, not even in our island. If a hotel down there in Tumon changes hands for $100 million, $150 million, and that recording or that transaction happens in Japan or Korea or China for that matter, but when they come back here and do the final deed of filing that paperwork and recording that transaction, they should pay this. And that money should help for these programs. But if 1.15 is too much, and we do our calculations and we do our numbers, and our good friend Mary and Clyde come to us and the others here and say, hey, we can show you $3 million that will generate $100 million worth of economic activity, and you guys are all going to benefit too. You're part and parcel of this here. Then fine. If it has to be 0.75 or whatever, and we try it out for that year, and say we're going to subsidize Mary for her program for $2 million. And one of the proposals here too in the rules and regs, Martin talked about it. Even a lot of your clients, by the time they get to the end of building that $300,000 dream home, Then what do they confront the first time they go up to the utilities? $10,000 to hook up their power and their water. If they need another pole, sometimes it's $12,000, $15,000. So one of the proposals here is create a revolving fund under this program so that they can apply for, if that's the last impediment to realizing that dream of a home, even 100,000 home or whatever, they go in, they apply for this program, then the utilities collect on an amortized over 30 years. And maybe this program only needs to be in effect 1, 2, 3 years, and the revolving fund starts to replenish it. And as the utilities taking out $10 a month for power, $8 a month for water in terms of their system, it goes back into the fund. So the next poor person that says, man, I did everything that I could to scrape together to build this $100,000 house, I don't got the 10 grand to put the water and the power in. So I can apply at Guam Housing, I can get that program, and then Waterworks and Power is going to assess a replenishment to the Guam Housing Trust Fund to me, and at least it's only $10 a month, not $10,000 out of my pocket straight away. I can do that, and I don't mind paying $8 more for water, and that money goes back to Guam Housing, and the next person that needs help to hook up their power and their water or whatever else, the money's there because this thing just keeps regenerating itself.
Oh, thank you. I might have some more questions later.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and the president of GAR is here, right? And that's Mrs. Palmer. If it's all right, Attorney Ching, I'll go ahead and yield to her first, please.
So we got the new bill just today, and really happy that you brought the draft, because yesterday we were still like, we've had these discussions and I see no change until today. So I do want to say that the Guam Association of Realtors in the previous round table said that we do want Guam Housing to be supported. This program needs to be supported. Absolutely. We actually said that we would really love to have the Cheetah's funds that have been serving this purpose to be a permanent income source. And that bill isn't here yet. So that's one thing that we absolutely said, if you could make a bill to have that be a permanent situation so that at least there's, we don't have to, they don't have to keep asking for that specific money. So that was one of the things that you did hear us say absolutely in support of. We also, we're definitely in support of the program. We absolutely think that Guam Housing has done an excellent job with the program. The new bill, this revised budget, needs to be looked at further. What we are wanting to make sure, as you talked about, is that whatever funding source is there, to try to make it as much of a revolving fund so that it's self-sustaining. And that would include the $40,000 loan for first-time buyers, and currently it's at 0% interest. You have an obvious opportunity to charge a low interest rate to the same buyers and have that money be more of a revolving an account. Even though money is being paid and those loans are being paid in, there's the cost of servicing those loans that are not being covered. And so you're in a negative situation. So there are some things with your budget and with the repayment that can be altered that can also address the concern of sustainability. On this, it is on, but got a little light on there. On your draft, okay, so on looking at some of the numbers, we pulled the 5,000 and up and the 1 million and up. And in 2014, I'm seeing 19 transactions. And on 2015, I'm seeing 26 of the million and up. So originally, when it was the 500, you guys were saying it was only going to affect 18, and that number is more like 45 or 50 for 2014 and higher for 2015. So it's really good to start getting accurate now numbers, and that's where we can still do some more discussion. We appreciate the decrease from $17.5 dollars per thousand down to 11.5, but we still need to look at numbers, and not comfortable with that number yet. But we haven't had a time to really look at the whole picture. Yeah.
And Deanna, if I can, that's why even when we had our meeting together, our further proposal for compromise was, then let's talk about a budget. Let's talk about the budget of their proven programs. And then when we know the value added, the public can say, we can buy into that. The buyers can say we can buy into that because it's proven, it's transparent, it's shown its success. And so even the 1.175, I mean, if it comes down to it to where it's 0.75, if we use a 3-year average, and it says it will yield, $3 million for their programs. Okay, fine. One thing we want to be clear about here, we're not trying to generate a pile of money to sit on. That's not what this is about. We see fights over the TAF. We see all these kind of things with regard to what happens when you got this generous funding source that everybody wants to run after. We get it. We know that the markets are sensitive. We understand investment. We know what you're doing. The governor made an order. You're not going to pile up a bunch of cash here. That's not what this is about. This is to subsidize proven programs. So if we started, and we also talked about not only it being revenue generating to the point of funding on the average, the 3-year average years before, percentage-wise, we also talked about the fact that if this, as proposed by Deanna, if this becomes regenerating, then we can sunset the program. It's not in stone. But absent an appropriation on a funded mandate right now, we've got to do something.
Well, and also the government needs to fund it. This is a program for our people. And so it needs to be a line item funding source as well. We can't just continue to raise taxes to pay for the program. The original bill, as it was presented, the draft, we spoke with Tina's office that Guam Association of Realtors would not support that draft. Now we have a new one, so we need to discuss more. And and Chris can talk about our other part of the concern, yeah?
I again, just as Deanna said, we have no problems with your programs. We're happy we've worked with you over the last years, and we work well together, and we're helping each other. And so the programs is not the issue, it's the funding. I totally agree with our senator about, increasing taxes. I don't think is the right way to go at all. My personal thought is, we're paying $250 per thousand now, and that just went up from $1.
No, sir, it did not, and it hasn't changed.
No, for about 5-6 years ago.
No, it hasn't, sir. Never changed. Okay. You guys need to get that corrected, please.
Okay.
It did go up from $2.50 to $5 for a brief period of time of like less than the number of fingers on my hand before you guys had it reverted back. And it doesn't even cover the cost of land management right now. So it is at $2.50 and it's been there.
No, I don't want to go through there and fight. The second point is the bill as you drafted does not protect your $2.50. All of the $11.50 will go to them. So you guys need to redo that part of the bill. Just to let you know, you're reserved.
It's been noted and we discussed it.
Okay, I just want to let you know what you presented. Again, your second part, you've added a new bill, a new section to the delinquent penalties and property. I think that's excellent. I don't know where that money is going now. There's a lot of other things that could be looked at in that section: motor vehicle registration, late fees and penalties, business license, late fees and penalties, corporation LLC license fees. There's a lot of other sources in existing that could be looked at as a permanent funding source rather than increasing. My problem, my basic personal problem is I'm just afraid we're sending out the wrong signal to investors. I don't know if you remember, but when GWA put a moratorium on sewer, I mean, all the investors went away. And we lost hundreds of millions of dollars of investments, hotel projects, everything on this island because the government put that moratorium on sewer lines. I think you're sending a similar signal to investors here. You're saying if you buy on Guam, you're going to pay more than the other person. And I just don't think that's the right signal to send out to people, to those of us that are pitching properties, trying to sell to investors. Tell them, well, you got to pay an extra $7 per thousand here. I just don't think it's the right play at this time. If you want to be fair and move it up for everybody, I don't like that. I don't want that. I think you will be hurting the small person. But I think a fair playing field is where we should be at rather than tiering things and saying, rich guys, you pay more because you're rich, or high investors.
Then you would like me to submit a proposal for a bill? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bora, I'll go ahead and have you address that back to me based on the previous statement. But Mr. Felix, go ahead and finish.
Well, that's basically it. I don't want you to submit a bill raising it from 250 back to 5, or I don't. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you are going to tax or fee somebody, I think it should be a fair. I think there are other places to look, and I just gave you 4 or 5 ideas that you might want to look at, and I think could generate. The other thing is, how much money do you have a budget? If I think you need a budget to figure out how much money you're gonna earn.
That's why we provided the historical data on what the $3 million did.
Okay, so with that being said, I did want to formalize it and maybe work with Guam Housing Corporation and say I have 3 different questions, and hopefully we can get responses based on, before that information came in, what is the specific amount of funds Guam Housing Corporation intends to raise by increasing the real property conveyance tax? How was the proposed rate chosen? And I did say here earlier that some of the rates were templated through what was the successes in other states. But 3 is, did Guam Housing Corporation conduct an economic analysis on the proposed tax increases? And those, I think, are very important. And that's why in the earlier presentation, I did ask if there were any financial reports, any impact statements that we could work with, any statements from Guam Housing Corporation that we can work with. A lot of times before we go out and asking our parents for money, and we have money in our own house, we've got to be able to make sure that we have left no stone unturned before we go out and ask our parents. And I'm just saying that because I think it's important that we do our due diligence before we go out and ask for more. And that's why it was important to come to this table to see what we could do. I do know that based on the new proposal, those were alternatives, Senator, that we spoke about when the committee did meet with the administration to see, because there was a concern from the administration also not to increase taxes. And that was something that the governor was really adamant about. And then when this proposal came up, we said, let's look at all the other alternatives. We spoke to GAR, and GAR at every point of the meetings that we've had was no to increases of taxes, no. And at this point, why are they increasing it from the amount that's being assessed today which we know that the funding goes to land management. Why are they increasing it 10 times over? Well, the percentage was much, much higher. So, looking at this perspective, I know that now this is an early start, and regrouping with what the administration has now sent it before you, and I'm hoping that the governor will send this down officially so that we can address it and it be a starting talking point to move forward on something. In the meantime, there could be other alternatives that could be looked at. At this time, I'm going to open the floor to Michael. I do apologize. Did you have any comments or statements? Please proceed.
First, I'm counsel to Cortec, but I'm speaking on my behalf as an attorney with experience in real estate. I just received this morning, so I didn't have a chance to really go into great detail. The bill has certain defects in it. It has problems with different questions. As an attorney, reading it and trying to interpret it, I see questions on there. For example, transaction. What kind of transactions? We're talking about leasehold, gifts, easements, everything. What's the value of an easement? So you got all these questions on, and different type of things. But I really wanted to address something else. I don't want to talk about the programs in itself, which I'm not fighting. I may not be in total agreement with it, but I think it's good. But I don't necessarily agree with the numbers that was presented by Chris Duenas here. Maybe they're correct, maybe they're not. But I know when I went through a class in statistics and in numbers and whatnot, everything can be distorted and twisted. Okay, I'm not going to go back into that. What I want to talk about, really, I want to pull a Donald Trump here. People are afraid to complain, but let's face it, the government is inefficient. Costs, all you're doing is raising the cost of doing business. And as an attorney, I see it happening not just to a lot of my clients and a lot of other people. The Department of Public Works, they get things done really slow. The government, a lot of the procedures and trying to get things done, trying to get a permit, trying to get clearances to build a house, there's so many delays, it's costly. And then now you're increasing the cost of transactions, real estate transactions, and I'm not sure whether this new charge, whether it's 1.15% more, is that in addition to what is being charged by land management? So on top of that is the $250, or it's included in it? I'm not sure. But the cost is very high of doing business. And all we see is it's going up and up and up. And in a way, government is not helping business get done, and yet it is important. It's making it harder to do business. Costly. And if we lose, does the government help us? No. We lose. It's expensive. There are other sources, as Chris talked about. There are certain things that really bother me. One thing that bothers me is that a lot of people, they invest into Guam, they make money on Guam, they send money off of Guam, and so where does the money, all their profits go? Goes back to the States. Yet they make the money from the people of Guam. Who am I talking about? As an example, Ross, Kmart. They make over $10 million a year. Not a year, $10 million a month. They're one of the top 5 Kmarts in the world. The profits that come in spins off to the States, not spent here. Do they help the island of Guam in a way? In a way, yes. You can talk about the good parts, but what about the bad parts? You know, a lot of the small businessmen, the merchants, the small mom and pop stores, which were put out of business by Kmart, they used to donate. They used to help the different things, the GNOC, the sports federations and all of that on this island. You think Kmart donates? No. Tadza, nothing. What about, let's talk about real estate. You want to talk about real estate? Okay. What about foreign businesses? Foreign people can create a company here, buy real estate as much as they want, and they're not living here and not pay any income taxes. Yet our income taxes, who builds the roads, the water, power, sewer, the infrastructure for that property, it gives it the value and sustains the value, they don't pay any taxes. And yet they take all the profit. Why not charge a special tax of some sort to foreign investors who own real estate? Of course, there's a lot of complications. The majority of, is it the majority owned by the foreign companies or the foreign people? But there's a way which we can make money in different ways. Other people are benefiting the fruits of our hard work for the residents, and yet they're not paying taxes here. You think that's fair? I don't think that's fair. I don't think that's right. Then I see this bill come through as another cost of doing business, and yet the government makes it difficult for us to do business, to make things profitable and helpful for this island. It's not easy. It's really, really difficult. We have to pull hairs to get things done. And at a cost, at a risk. And the government doesn't face that same risk. Oh, we don't have enough money. Okay, we need more money. Okay, slap another tax, a bill here, and charge you this. They don't account for these things. And one of the biggest things that we face initially every day is facing the difficulties in getting things done with the government. Again, like Department of Public Works, the different government agencies getting things through, delays, oversights, mistakes, got to be done over again, and different problems. Is the government really accountable? That's what I don't like. As a businessman, we're accountable. If we make a mistake, we lose. Comes out of our pocket. If I make a mistake as an attorney, I'm guilty for malpractice. What does the government stand to lose? It's just not right. That's my testimony.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Speaker Wampat.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chingham, I was actually kind of surprised to hear you say this, because it was actually my suggestion to Guam Housing when they approached me the last time about this bill. And my whole question was exactly just that, is to research through their attorney whether we could legally then say that we would charge then these foreign businesses who don't pay any taxes here on the island and actually take the money with them. They make their money, then they leave with their money. And I don't know, I've asked them to research that, and you're an attorney, and I don't know whether you would know whether is that, legal for the government to do, to say then we're going to just charge these foreign companies, because I didn't want the charge to come to our local people, but rather to those who have made their monies and left with the money. Do you have any idea legally?
I'm not a tax expert, but it should be investigated in greater depth and examined. That's what I'm saying. And I sure like to find a way to make sure about it. But I'm not. Again, I have never spent my time on examining taxes in a great deal.
Then maybe that's something then, Chris,
I think it should be examined.
Be able to really look at then.
That's the beauty of a roundtable. We'll take all suggestions back and work on whatever comes out of today.
Thank you.
Senator, Mr. Israel.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chairman, and Senator Ben's son. I belong to the old school. Last night I started typing out my written testimony like I usually do. And then I realized I've spoken about this matter many, many times before. This is not the first time. So my response for a written testimony is, look at the 10 or 15 other testimonies I've written in the past. It's verbally the same. But what's happened in our island, our government-controlled island, you hear of company towns like Hershey Town, Carnegie Town, towns where the companies own the business, own the land, own the houses. Guam is different. Guam is a government island, owned and controlled by the government. And as a result, the brightest men tend to go towards government employment. And the persons who thought of this idea are geniuses. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a done deal. I have to be realistic. What GovGuam and its employees want, they'll get, regardless of the consequences. In the Philippines, we have a term for that. It's called lutong Macau. The Macau way of cooking, half cooked, half baked. And that's what this is all about. So I'd rather not rehash the problem. I'd rather go to the root of what's causing this. GovGuam is anti-business. From the halls of the university to the high school and to the mentality of our government bureaucracy, it is anti-business. In our projects, we have to budget an extra 25% for government interference, government work. And that's 25% for nothing. It doesn't go to bricks and stones. It disappears in the air into the fathomless pit of GovGuam bureaucracy. But it's a one-way street. And this is why I'm surprised that no lawyer has ever sued GovGuam for discrimination and racism. Oops, I said a bad thing. Look there, you're right. I'll say it. GovGuam is the biggest violator of racism and discrimination. Let's come up and say it. One day, a lawyer might come up and sue the dickens out of GovGuam. They're in for a big lawsuit. And eventually, who'll pay it out? Not GovGuam, the taxpayers. Why is it that no one has come up with the question, you want more revenue? That's one way to pay for expenses. A second way is, why not cut down expenses? It's a known fact that GovGuam is about 50% overstaffed. Take away 50% of GovGuam employees and it will still function. So if Guam Housing needs some funds for failed projects, as it's been proven in the past, Guam Housing is not only in Guam, but in the mainland, every government project has ended up as a failure. Why pour more money into failed projects? There's other alternatives. Cut expenses. But no one thinks about cutting expenses. They'll say, what will we do with the people who are terminated? You don't terminate people. You just don't hire more people. And by attrition, you'll cut down government of Guam expenditures. GovGuam expenditures right now is $2 billion. That's the amount of money being spent on our 160,000 population island. $2 billion. This is from the Doris Brooks records. 680 million for the line agencies, another 700 million for the autonomous, and I say that with a smirk, for the autonomous agencies, and another 800 million from the federal government. That totals $2 billion for an island of 160,000 people. Pomona City, with a population of 120,000, has a total budget, including police and hospitalization and schooling, of $143 million a year. I know that because the financial officer of Pomona City is a friend of mine. 143 million budget, total budget, for a population of 120,000. Here in Guam, we have a population of 160,000, and we have expenditure, a budget spent on the island of $2 billion. That's a crime. And only about 5% of that goes to capital improvements. Speaking of capital improvements, a prime example of what happened, as Felix has said, GWA put a moratorium in 2 months, expansion and construction because the sewer pipes are over capacity. After 6 months of that, Michael, my son, went with a bunch of engineers to the pump station at the Fujita Road. And the reason why they couldn't hook up to the sewer system to do more construction was because of the fact that 4 of the 5 pumps were not working. Not because we didn't have the capacity. We have sewer lines that are empty. But they couldn't pump it up the hill to the main road. That's a very prime example of what Guam is. But there will be no change anyway. The laws of economics will eventually prevail. The laws of Guam are bound to be failures, like any other government economic theory. Economic laws will always prevail sooner or later. 1 + 1 will always equal 2. Not the 1 + 1 could be 11, could be 0. These are all theories which eventually fail. Businessmen are not philanthropists. We're in for a profit. That's heresy to say that, but it's a fact, without it being hypocrite. If there's no profit, there will be no business. So the theory now is being posted, $15 an hour. Wow, everybody, all the employees say, I'm going to get $8, $6 more. Laws of economics, 1 + 1, it'll always be 2. You give a man $1 raise, it looks good on paper for the politicians, elected officials. Man thinks, I'm going to put extra dollar in my pocket. He's wrong. He's going to put $1 less the taxes of 25 or 30%. So his money in the pocket that he's get is not $1, but 70 or 75 cents. But in the meantime, the prices that he has to pay on the outside goes up $1. Who loses out? But that doesn't sink into the average people. They keep thinking $1. They forget that the government, any government, not just Guam, but all governments are there to take their cut without raising taxes. And the other thing I find very disturbing in this more so this last few years, is the desire of Guam and the activists to separate the people. They keep categorizing the people as locals or natives. We against them. I find that very disturbing. It's a subject that no one wants to talk about, but it's getting more and more prevalent. I'd like to think of us as residents, no matter where we came from. I came in this island long before all of you were born. I've been here that long, but I'm still considered an outsider. And I resent that. Everything I have is on this island. I can't think of a better place to be, and I've tried. I've tried other places. Nothing beats Guam, in spite of our government. Can you imagine what it would be like? But okay, so those are. So if anything at all will come out of this is that I doubt if it will happen, that Guam should be more business friendly. It's the business that supplies you the funds to be so proliferate. It's the business that provides you with the funds to be so wasteful. Oh, yes, wasteful. Guam. I'll say it. What else can they do to me that they haven't done anyway? They recently passed building code that you passed, all of you, including the three of you, without reading it. Remember? 2 years ago, the new building code. It was passed without reading it. That reminded me of Congresswoman Pelosi and the Obamacare. Let's pass it, we'll read it afterwards. And sure enough, when you read that building code, you needed to have a fireplace in every home, blah, blah, and this and that. So they tried to change it. But the consultants loved it. All the consultants that they had in Saipan came to Guam to testify in favor of it because it created more jobs for them. Now, to do a simple project that we could do on our own before, in our own office, now we have to hire experts like Attorney Ching and experts like all the architects to do the same work that we were doing before. We've made it more complicated, and when we make it more complicated, we make it more expensive. And who pays for that extra expense? Not you and I. We pass it on to the consumer, to the very people that you wanted to protect and that you should protect. Anyway, thank you for letting me talk. It won't change things, but at least I feel better.
Thank you, Senator Israel. Senator Tonieta. Okay.
Any questions? I'm open to questions. I'll defend my position anytime, any place, anywhere.
I think this is really important. You know, having the stakeholders come, I'd like to thank the administration for being here. I do want to note that based on my earlier comment and the questions and the inquiries I had for both the administration and Guam Housing is what is the specific amount of funds Guam Housing Corporation intends to raise by increasing the real property conveyance tax, and how is that proposed rate chosen? We look at the numbers before us, and I guess what I'd like to see is the concrete numbers and the detailed reporting. So any information that you could provide to this committee. We will continue to open this record on this roundtable for additional testimony. I'm asking that all of you guys go back. We may need to revisit some stuff. I want to continue to work with the administration and the the Guam Housing Coordinating Council, and making sure that all the stakeholders are familiar to see what's on the table. We want to make sure that if one project is done, it doesn't impede or doesn't step onto another project or another agency. So I guess moving forward, I see this as a proposed opportunity to come down. The GAR, you have your homework cut out for you to make sure that that is looked at, and making sure that even all the other alternatives that were brought up today, that could be visited and maybe included in the report coming into this committee. I stand committed as Guam Housing Corporation and Housing Oversight that in our efforts for moving forward, we've got to make sure that it's a win-win for everybody. So with that being said, Senator, thank you. Mr. President, thank you. Mr. Borja, thank you. And to GAR, And to the employees of Guam Housing Corporation, I see you out there. Thank you very much for being here. We do want to see successful programs. We know that funding is very tight, very scarce, but we want to find opportunities. And like I said earlier, we're going to leave no stone unturned. We'll look at all the alternatives and work from there. Fair enough? Thank you. We are adjourned from this roundtable. Sana Masi.